Imagine ruling over a quarter of the world's land and people, an empire so vast that the sun literally never set on it. But how did this global dominion rise from a small island nation, and what led to its eventual collapse? Join us on an epic journey through time as we explore the British Empire's dramatic story, year by year, uncovering its secrets, ambitions, and ultimate decline. The British Empire was a phenomenon unlike anything the world had seen before. At its height, it was the largest empire in history, ruling over nearly a quarter of the globe's population and stretching across continents. Its influence touched every corner of the world, politically, economically, and culturally, leaving a legacy that continues to shape modern society. From the bustling markets of India to the remote territories of the Pacific, the British Empire reshaped nations, dictated global trade, and imposed its language, legal systems, and governance structures on diverse cultures. But this monumental empire wasn't built overnight. It emerged from a small island nation with few resources and grew into a global superpower through centuries of relentless naval conquests, shrewd political maneuvering, and industrial ingenuity. It was a story of ambition, innovation, and determination, but also one marked by exploitation, violence, and controversy. The empire's expansion came at a great cost to the people and lands it conquered, leaving a complex legacy of both progress and pain. Today we embark on a journey through the defining moments of the British Empire, tracing its story from its modest beginnings to its meteoric rise, its dominance at the height of its power. The birth of an empire, 16th-17th century, 1588. The defeat of the Spanish Armada. The story begins in 1588 when Britain, under Queen Elizabeth I, defeated the Spanish Armada. This victory marked the start of Britain's dominance at sea. While Spain's power waned, England's naval ambitions soared, paving the way for global exploration. 1607, Jamestown and the first colony. In 1607, British settlers established Jamestown in Virginia. It became the first permanent English colony in the Americas. Though fraught with hardship, it was the start of Britain's colonial footprint, a spark that would ignite their global expansion. 1620, the Pilgrims and Plymouth. The Pilgrims sailed to the New World aboard the Mayflower in 1620, establishing Plymouth Colony. This event wasn't just about religious freedom, it symbolized the empire's growing interest in North America. 1651, the Navigation Acts. The Navigation Acts of 1651 laid the foundation of Britain's mercantile empire. These laws ensured that colonies could trade only with Britain, solidifying economic control and boosting wealth back home. The expansion era, 18th century, 1757, Battle of Plassey and India's subjugation. In 1757, the British East India Company defeated Bengal's Nawab in the Battle of Plassey. This marked the beginning of British dominance in India, a land rich in resources and culture. Over the next century, India became the crown jewel of the empire. 1776, American Revolution and a bitter loss. The American colonies declared independence in 1776. This was a significant blow to the British Empire, but it led to a shift in strategy, focusing on controlling trade routes and securing colonies in Asia and Africa, rather than ruling large territories in the Americas. 1788, the penal colony in Australia. In 1788, Britain established a penal colony in Australia, a remote continent seen as both an opportunity and a solution for overcrowded prisons. This marked the beginning of British influence in the Pacific. The peak of power, 19th century, 1807. The abolition of the slave trade. By 1807, Britain abolished the transatlantic slave trade, a move that was as moral as it was strategic. While this decision ended a dark chapter, it also showcased the empire's shift towards industrial power, where machines replaced forced labor in driving wealth. 1839 to 1842. The First Opium War, Britain's hunger for trade dominance, led to the First Opium War against China. By 1842, the Treaty of Nanking handed Hong Kong to Britain and opened Chinese ports to British trade, highlighting the empire's unrelenting thirst for control. 1857, the Indian Rebellion and the Crown's takeover. In 1857, the Indian Rebellion, or Sepoy Mutiny, erupted against British rule. The rebellion marked the end of the East India Company's control. India came under direct rule of the British Crown, and Queen Victoria was crowned Empress of India in 1877. 1867, Canada becomes a dominion. The British North America Act of 1867 created the Dominion of Canada, granting it self-governance while keeping it within the empire. This model was later replicated in Australia and New Zealand. 1899 to 1902, the Boer War in South Africa. The Boer War was a costly and controversial conflict in South Africa. While Britain emerged victorious, it exposed the fragility of its imperial structure and foreshadowed the difficulties of holding on to its colonies in the 20th century. The decline begins, 20th century, 1914 to 1918. The First World War, World War I, was a turning point. While Britain was on the winning side, the war drained its resources and weakened its global position. It became clear that the empire could no longer maintain its vast holdings. 1931, the Statute of Westminster. In 1931, the Statute of Westminster granted legislative independence to dominions like Canada, Australia, and South Africa, signaling the beginning of a more decentralized empire. 1939 to 1945, the Second World War, World War II, further accelerated the empire's decline. Though victorious, Britain was left financially and militarily exhausted. Meanwhile, nationalist movements in colonies gained momentum. 1947, Indian independence and partition. The loss of India in 1947 was a monumental moment. Once the cornerstone of the empire, India's independence marked the beginning of rapid decolonization. Pakistan also emerged as a new nation-state during this partition, which led to widespread violence and displacement. 1956, the Suez Crisis. The Suez Crisis exposed Britain's diminished influence on the world stage. The empire could no longer act unilaterally, and its reliance on allies like the United States became evident. The final curtain, late 20th century, 1960s, decolonization in Africa. During the 1960s, African nations like Kenya, Nigeria, and Ghana gained independence. Britain's retreat from Africa symbolized the end of direct colonial rule. 1997, Hong Kong's handover. In 1997, Britain handed Hong Kong back to China under a one-country, two-systems agreement. It marked the symbolic end of the British Empire. The British Empire was a tale of ambition, ingenuity, and ruthless exploitation. It was a force that reshaped the world, forging new connections between continents, driving the Industrial Revolution, and laying the groundwork for modern global trade and politics. Its influence extended beyond borders, from spreading the English language to establishing legal systems and governance structures that still endure in many countries today. However, this empire was built on a foundation of deep inequality, with prosperity for Britain often coming at the expense of its colonies. From the forced labor of enslaved people to the extraction of natural resources and the suppression of local cultures, the British Empire's achievements were often shadowed by the suffering it caused. Yet, like all empires in history, it wasn't immune to the forces of change. Economic shifts, the rise of nationalism, the cost of global wars, and the resilience of colonized peoples gradually eroded its dominance. The same ingenuity and ambition that fueled its rise became insufficient to hold together its vast territories and diverse populations. Today, the legacy of the British Empire remains a subject of debate. For some, it represents a period of progress, modernization, and innovation. For others, it is a stark reminder of exploitation, displacement, and the struggle for freedom. What is undeniable is its profound impact on the modern world, a complex and far-reaching story of power, ambition, and inevitable decline. The question remains, can the lessons of the British Empire help shape a more just and equitable global future? While the empire has faded into history, its legacy remains all around us, from the English language to the global trade networks it once controlled. But was this legacy a gift or a curse? Share your thoughts below as we continue unraveling history's greatest stories.